I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone present here. It is indeed a matter of pride for us to talk about the story of India's journey through the past, present, and future. I, Diksha Nigam, represent Startup India. I've been part of this initiative for over 6 years now and currently work as a senior manager here. I'm here to talk about one of the key engines of the Indian growth story, which is relevant to the youth listening to this session who might be responsible in setting up startups of their own in the future. This masterclass is for JioGenNext Academy. The word startup is trending in India today, but its roots go back to 2016 when the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, launched the Startup India initiative as a clarion call to innovators, entrepreneurs, and thinkers of the nation to lead from the front and drive India's sustainable economic growth. The initiative is a result of the 19-pointer action plan released in the same year, spanning across three major pillars: simplification and handholding, funding support and incentives, and industry academy partnership and incubation. Startup India was set up with the aim of bringing this to implementation. As is visible on the slide, these are some quick stats of the startup ecosystem in the country. We are the third largest startup ecosystem with over 80,000 startups recognized by the government. Interestingly, we have 45% startups coming from the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and close to about 45% of these startups with at least one women director. So before we deep dive into what we really do, what a startup in India is. One, it should be incorporated as either a private limited company or a registered partnership firm or a limited liability partnership. A sole proprietor or a public limited company is not eligible as a startup. Its turnover for any financial year should not exceed over 100 crores. It should be working towards innovation, development, or improvement of products or processes or services, or it is a scalable business model with a high potential of employment generation or wealth creation. It should not have been formed by splitting up or reconstruction of a business already in existence. And it is up to 10 years from the date of incorporation or registration. So the process of recognition as a startup is fairly simple and is through an online application made over the Startup India platform set up by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. The steps as visible on the slide are to be undertaken to submit the application. Once the application has been submitted by the startup, our team reverts back within 48 to 72 hours with the status of recognition of the entity. It's either marked as incomplete or is approved as a recognized entity based on the information submitted by startups. So I see there's a question in the chat box. Will blockchain verification reduce the compliance burden on startups? Okay, so blockchain verification of DPIIT startups basically helps in maintaining authenticity of the certificate awarded to startups. And it can basically be used by any player, private sector organizations, angel investors, VCs for the verification purposes. We have another question, which is around essential supporting documents that our startup needs to furnish to get registered. Okay, so the mandatory documents include certificate of registration or incorporation, letter of authorization, and Aadhaar card of the authorized representatives. And this is across all stages of startups. When we talk about ideation stage startups, they're not required to upload any other document, but validation stage startups are required to upload either a website link or a pitch deck or a video of their product. And early traction or scaling stage startups are required to upload either a pitch deck or a video. Coming on to our role, our primary functions include policy interventions like startup recognition, self-certification under labor and environmental laws, allowing startups to self-certify their compliances under 9 labor and 3 environmental laws for a period of 3 to 5 years from the date of incorporation, enabling ease of doing business. Additionally, we also focused on easing procurement norms for startups. Central ministries and departments are directed to relax conditions on prior turnover, prior experience, and submission of earnest money deposit criteria. Further, the government e-marketplace or GEM Startup Runway has been set up as a dedicated corner for startups to sell products and services directly to the government. The second pillar is around stakeholder management in the form of ministry, corporate, and global linkages, and the incubation to identify critical problems and research needs, and establishing appropriate linkages with academic institutions, research bodies, incubators, industries, etc. So, and the final and the third pillar, one of the most important one is funding support, which is a critical point for startups and mitigate the threat of tying in its success story. So the funding schemes are categorized as fund of fund for startups. The government has established 10,000 crore fund of fund to meet the funding needs of startup. And it has not only made capital available for them at early stage and growth stage, but has also played a catalytic role in terms of facilitating raising of domestic capital, reducing dependence on foreign capital, and encouraging homegrown and new venture capital funds. Then comes the seed fund scheme. So easy availability of capital is essential for entrepreneurs at the early stage of growth of an enterprise. The capital required at this stage often presents a make or break situation for startups with a good business idea. So the scheme, with an outlay of 945 crore, aims to provide financial assistance to startups for proof of concept, prototype development, product trials, market entry, and commercialization. Finally, the Government of India, to give a much needed boost to the startup industry, has recently announced a special scheme known as the Credit Guarantee Scheme for Startups. The guarantee will be offered by lending institutions that are member of the scheme to eligible startups that must be DPIIT recognized. Credit guarantees of up to 5 crores will be offered to every eligible case, including assistance such as working capital, venture capital, optionally convertible debt, debentures, term loans, etc. As I've also mentioned in my previous slides, the key benefits of the initiative include ease in public procurement norms in terms of the prior experience, prior turnover, and EMT submission criteria, subsidized patent and trademark application fee, and a list of facilitators to support with the application. Now, I've already spoken about the various incentives available for startups, but how can the startups across different stages utilize these incentives? So, for example, you're in ideation stage startups. We have learning and development programs available for you on pro bono basis. There is an idea bank on the Startup India portal, which talks about various sectors and opportunities available in the sectors. You can go through and read about various schemes and incentives available for you at that stage. Then, if we talk about validation stage startups, you can apply for various tax exemptions and IPR support. And there are other tools and templates like pitch deck format, HR template, legal template, which are also accessible on pro bono basis. Similarly, for early traction scaling state startups, you can apply for various market access programs, corporate programs, international programs, exposure visit, showcase opportunities that are listed on the Startup India portal from time to time. I see we have a few more questions in the chat window. Okay, so when do you know you are ready to move to the next phase of startup lifecycle? Okay, so we don't decide the startup stage. These are mostly captured on self-declaration basis. So the startups need to identify what stage they are at. And depending upon the incentive they're applying for, the startup stage plays an important role. For example, if you're applying for tax exemption, it would be more fruitful if you are getting generating some sort of revenues, or if you're at a validation or an early traction stage. Similarly, when you talk about international exposure or market access programs, it makes sense when you are at an early stage, early traction stage, or a scaling stage when you are looking for corporates to connect with or international partners to connect with. Okay, so we have another question, which is around the international programs that a startup can be exposed to. Okay, so we try and take delegation of startups to these international programs. To give you an example, recently a delegation of startups was taken to Dubai Expo for exposure to the international market and also with international investors. We also took a delegation of startups to Slush. Similarly, we also do a lot of events within the country, and startups can participate in it, and then multiple international delegations are a part of these programs as well. I think the next question talks about the procurement benefits. As I've mentioned in my previous slide, uh, the the basic requirement under central government tenders or state tenders is that the companies need to have some sort of prior experience, prior turnover when applying for any of these tenders. Now, if you're a startup, it is recommended that these central ministries and departments do away with these criteria. So, as a startup, you're exempt from the prior turnover criteria, prior experience criteria, and the criteria for submission of the earnest money deposit. Also, through the GEM Startup Runway, the innovative products can also be tested by the government departments on pilot. The Government of India launched the Startup India Online Hub on the 19th June 2017, which is one of its kind online platform for all stakeholders of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India to discover, connect, and engage with each other. The hub hosts not just startups and aspiring entrepreneurs, but also investors, funds, mentors, academic institutes, incubators, accelerators, corporates, and even government departments. Most of the incentives and benefits that I've spoken about in the previous slides can be accessed through the Startup India platform. As showcased on the slide, these are some corporate partners that we have linkages with. As you can see, we have support extended by some very prominent and prestigious entities who have played an important role in shaping up the startup ecosystem. The corporates share with us problem statements or areas in which they are looking for innovative technologies. We then host these problem statements on the Startup India platform, inviting applications from startups. The corporates then evaluate these applications, shortlist these startups, do one-on-one consultations, and at the end of each challenge or program, startups are rewarded with either cash prize, mentorship support, incubation support, pilot opportunities, etc. Similar to how we work with corporates, here you can see few of the government engagements. Again, we host problem statements or themes given by the government departments on the Startup India platform, invite applications from the startups, the shortlisting happens, and the government at the end extends support in the form of pilots, research facilities, licensing, incubation support, or business orders. One of the key objectives under the Startup India initiative is to help connect Indian startup ecosystem to the global startup ecosystem through various engagement models. This has been done through international government to government partnerships, partnership in international forums, and hosting of global events. Startup India till date has launched bridges with 15 countries, as can be seen on the slides, that provide a soft landing platform from startups from the partner nations and aid in promoting cross collaborations. One of the key development in terms of public procurement is GEM Startup Runway. DPIIT recognized startups can register on the runway. Um, so, as mentioned earlier, they are exempted from prior experience, prior turnover, and the EMD submission criteria. They have the opportunity to work with the government departments on pilot basis. There is also a feedback mechanism for startups for government validation. And unlike other products, there are no category issues for these innovative technologies. As is seen on the next slide, over 15,000 startups have been registered till date and have made a sales worth 9,500 crores and above. A few of the success stories include RMS Technologies, Trioka Transolutions, H2O Mantra, who've made sales to the government departments. The government has also set up National Startup Advisory Council, or the NSAC, to advise the government on measures needed to build a strong ecosystem for nurturing innovation and startups in the country. This is chaired by Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister Shri Piyush Goyalji, and the meetings are held on regular basis to understand what needs to be done in the ecosystem to promote and nurture more and more startups. Um, this is all from our side. Thank you.